I think of one example. So Portland Mercury, for their blog, interviewed somebody pseudonymously. So I didn't know who was my accuser at the time, saying that I made allegations of me having associations with the far right, and I was never reached for comment. The blog post went out. It was a very damning headline. It was a local thing though.
Yeah.
National media didn't know, but Slate, Vice,
No,
Vox,
the
writer
usual suspects, right?
then referenced that in their own pieces, and then now that is then referenced in my Wikipedia. So
And then someone will pick that up in the Wikipedia, and it bootstraps.
well, the LA Times review that published the review of my book then referenced what was referenced, cited in my Wikipedia. So, yeah, whenever I'm written about in liberal media, it's always, I'm either described as a far-right provocateur, or the line is that I have been accused of having ties to the far right, which I don't. But, I mean, after, I was naive for a time. I really thought that if I wrote to some of these editors to dispute the characterizations, that that these editors would have an integrity to either respond to me or make
Their goal is
corrections,
to
and they
push a
don't.
narrative.
Correct.
That's their goal. Their goal isn't to have journalistic integrity or pursue the truth. It's to cement the narrative and promote the narrative in which they already believe.
So we're living through, I guess, the consequence or reality of cultural dominance from left-wing ideology. Part of that has institutionalized, in my view, Marcuse's repressive tolerance, which is basically that right-wing views should be silenced by any means necessary. And so, I've been beaten several times, not for activism, but actually just going out with a camera and documenting things in public. And what I see over and over is that the violent extremists who are carrying out the violence against me and other journalists, or even women, sometimes even children on a rare occasion, they do it because there's no social consequence for their actions. Their actions are actually lauded. It's celebrated. You can see over and over the people who make threats against people like those sitting around these tables, those who have committed violence against us. There are actually many people on social media who praise that. And so, it kind of creates an incentive to take militant, violent, direct action to silence opposing views. And then when you have that within a structure, let's say of a left-wing jurisdiction like Portland or Seattle or Berkeley or New York, where criminal acts are not prosecuted when there's a tinge of sort of a left-wing motivation behind it, then we have this thing where people can carry out acts of violence with essentially impunity. And I've been talking about this for years, and I don't really know what the solution is. I'm very, very concerned when people who care a lot about free speech, they go into Portland or they go into other places, and then my message is always like, it's worse than what you've seen on the videos. Like when you are alone, you are surrounded, or even when police are within eyesight, you can be. I was beaten for the first in 2019. When I was beaten, that was actually basically in front of the central police station. No help ever arrived. So it's, I don't tell like activists to like silence themselves or stay away, but just realize that there are places in America where First Amendment and constitutional rights are essentially not applicable. The documents are there, yes, but the norms of the society is that is anti-free speech and anti-freedom of expression.
Portland is ground zero for all of that. What's happening in Portland can happen anywhere. I was assaulted in front of a church with probably 3 different police cruisers watching it happen. Pastors from the church watching.
This was in the context of the Jane's Revenge attacks last year.
Yes, and I didn't realize what that was going to look like. I just went up there knowing that they were going to possibly attack what was supposed to be a pregnancy resource center. So I showed up and then figured out, they're coming to this. It's a secondary building of a church that I actually had attended when I lived in Portland. And they're boarding up the windows, and I see police officers everywhere, and I thought I might actually be safe. But
No.
no, they allowed the mob not to just assault me one time, but 2 separate times. They marched away and they marched back.
Were they in black bloc? Were they in all black?
The people who assaulted me were in block. But the police were feet away, yards away.
I'm just really surprised that there's nobody just takes a gun and just shoots all these people.
Well, that's my concern. Is it's not just that they're not doing anything, but it creates this vacuum. And what happens when regular people, and I guess it wouldn't be regular people that would just respond to it, but there's violence being allowed to happen to regular people. I mean, I'm not an activist. I just go out to document. I have opinions, but I'm not saying anything really when I'm doing it. Somebody they will fill that vacuum. And
so what? I guess that's so. Why is it that I hear over and over the cops don't do anything? I mean, why?
Because they're not politically supported.
That's right.
yeah,
Local politics has been completely infiltrated. So the reason why the police don't do anything is because look at what happened in the George Floyd situation. At the end of the day, George Floyd did die from a fentanyl overdose in his system, and Derek Chauvin did do what he was trained to do. That is a point blank fact.
What is it?
mm-hmm.
So the Antifa riots and violence started once Trump was announced as the winner of the 2016 election. We had, if you may remember, 3 nights of rioting, which
Correct.
is more than anywhere in America. At that point going onwards was the beginning point of the current manifestation of Antifa violence. In 2017, 2018, there were regular brawls that were happening between Antifa and right-wing groups in downtown. A lot of these videos went viral. You may
Right.
remember them
Right,
from
for
years
sure.
ago. So in 2017 and 2018, Portland police used to respond in big numbers in downtown and try to keep the sides separate. The entire media establishment and everyone in city council put out a narrative
Joanne Hardesty.
that the Portland police were protecting the fascists and were intentionally seeking to injure racial justice protesters. Ted Wheeler himself was part of it spreading this claim about systemic racial bias in police. And he's a police commissioner. We have that odd system in Portland where the mayor doubles as a police commissioner. I don't have firsthand evidence of this. I am just speculating based on the variables at the time. Was that a lot of pressure was placed on the Portland police to not be seen as any way favorable to right-wing protesters. And by favorable, that could mean actually making sure that people weren't being injured, finding a way for right-wing protesters to safely go in and out of the dangerous situation. Actually, if you can look back, a lot of stories were in these videos that were deceptively put out. Portland police escorting fascists to safety. Portland police safely escorting fascists over the bridge. And so, I mean, all of this affects morale in the police department and just kept getting worse and worse until I assume at some point it did seem around 2019 that something in the commands, the instruction that went out was actually to really pull back on police responses. We also had 3 different police chiefs in a period of 6 months. So it was also, and then George Floyd happened. And so
It's not just Portland, though, right? It's
Correct.
the worst here. But this is systemic everywhere. This is all over Canada. I've had run-ins with police in Ottawa, Montreal, Vancouver, where I've been assaulted, had my arm broken, and police did nothing in any of those instances. I've been punched, painted on, spat on, had my car keyed and my signs destroyed in front of a dozen police officers in Ottawa, and they did nothing. And in Montreal, when my arm was broken, they waited so long that they lost all the street footage. And I told them they were going to lose the street footage, but they waited that long anyway. And then they told me there was nothing they could do unless I gave them the names of my masked and hooded attackers.
It's hard to be optimistic, though. I think, yes, there have been a number of legislative wins in certain states in the U.S., but let's just look at Canada. Your culture has shifted radically in one direction, and the Liberal government has been able to either pass legislations or propose certain bills that are, I don't know if they can ever really be undone. Like, I'm thinking of bills protecting into law gender expression and things like that, and so
The Canadian MPs unanimously passed a bill. It's called conversion therapy now, to help your girl feel comfortable as a girl.
they say that's conversion therapy.
Yes, if a girl says she's a boy, that's okay. If you want to help her feel comfortable as a girl and not become a lifelong medical patient, that's considered conversion therapy.
So basically, if you parent your own child as opposed to the state doing it.
Right. If you don't want her getting a chemical castration drug, you can lose your child to the state. Or in British Columbia, we have a law called the Infants Act, which states that parental approval is not needed for any medical procedure at any age.
You asked a very important question because about the partisan aspect of opposition or support on, let's say, gender trans ideology. So I spent a lot of time in the UK now, and over there, that people care about the issue as an issue rather than as a partisan a partisan thing. In the US, as much as I think we can explain how it's not a left or right issue, but at the end of the day, because of how
politically it is, yeah,
how the culture wars on the US, it's like if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican, you just sort of buy into this whole set of beliefs, and there's not really a lot of wiggle room. For example, on if you're Republican and you're very, very pro-abortion, it's very, very hard to fit in. It just is. You'll be also, I mean, I struggle to really think of any who are like actively pro-abortion. There's some who are libertarian on abortion issues on the right, but pro-abortion, that's not really something that just doesn't fit into the GOP, I think. And the way the Democrat Party is now, if you come out against trans ideology, you just cannot fit in. So you're forced to conform. So it is a partisan issue, and I think, and that's my worry about some of these red states that have passed legislation that, I mean, I'm in support of. I think having safeguards at the legislative level to protect minors against irreversible medical intervention, that's very important. But just seeing the pushback among young people in very red states, I mean, we're talking, the reddest of states in America, the young people that come out to oppose this, I'm just thinking 10 years down the line, or maybe 5 years down the line, it's like we've seen how quickly culture can shift among the next generation. And so, that's why I'm always I'm less optimistic, but.
And people have bought this lie that this is life-saving care, and it's not.
Yeah, I think it's more global with the education system, but that's could be my
it is.
Plus. But I want. What do you?
To me, it's like, Chris, you've done amazing work as one individual. It's incredible, and I don't want my pessimism to sound like I'm devaluing that.
No.
But like what grassroots activists are able to do, and then I compare it to, let's say, what corporations are able to do. And corporations have a lot of sway over affecting culture. And it's a David and Goliath type of situation. And, I just come out feeling a bit like